Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us at the Global Health Forum. Before we begin, please turn on your camera. KOFIH started to organize and host the Global Health Forum every month since last September to lead discussions on global health issues. We hope different ideas and topics suggested through the forum will help raise the value of health cooperation and set the norms in the international community. Before the presentation, let me briefly introduce today's presenter, Dr. Specioza Wandira Kazibwe. She previously served as the Vice President of Uganda and currently serves as a Senior Presidential Advisor on Population and Health. Today, she will share her thoughts on deepening decentralization of health services delivery after COVID-19. Please welcome her with a big hand.
Are we on? Yes. Good morning, good evening. I don't know, good afternoon to everybody who has plugged into this webinar. I want to first of all recognize my colleague Kim, with whom I was at Harvard School of Public Health. Greetings to you all. I want to first of all thank KOFIH for the work that they are doing in my country, Uganda. And I'll talk to Uganda more because that's the country I know best. Thank you for supporting us to build our health systems. And thank you for placing a country office here to ensure that the work that we do reaches the people who need it most. I will start by telling you that my presentation is going to be quite long according to normal standards, but I'll try my best to make it as short as possible. I'll talk to legal and policy instruments, specifically focusing on Africa for the overarching policy framework. Then I talk about the legal framework that supports health work in the country. And then I'll talk about Uganda's experience with respect to the epidemics from when we started having epidemics in this country, with the recent focus on COVID and Ebola. And then I'll give my thoughts about how we can actually move forward. When we go to the African Union, as you may all know, the African Union has set up machinery to coordinate health in the whole continent. It thus has a strategic plan, which is programmed to run from 2016 to 2030. Its vision is an integrated, inclusive Africa, free from heavy disease burden, disability, and premature death. And the mission of the African Health Strategy is to ensure that we strengthen health systems, we scale up health interventions, and we empower communities. 3 missions. That is what they ask the countries in Africa to do. And its goal is to ensure long, healthy lives, promote the well-being for everybody in Africa in the context of Agenda 2063, and call upon the participants to find time to look at what Agenda 2063 is. It's about transformation of Africa with a focus on the people living in Africa. And it's called the Africa We Want. And of course, we have the global, the united, the whole world sustainable development goals, which are the ones which this agenda is anchored in. The overall objective of this strategy is to strengthen health system performance, I want to stress the word performance because many times our partners, when we talk about health systems, we are looking at indicators of performance which are not to do with really the health of the people. They look to building hospitals, buying equipment, but health system performance is about the satisfaction of the people with the delivery of services. That should be the number one. Then how is health across the population? Is it well distributed? And then whether this health system is not impoverishing the population. The objective is also to increase investment in health. And I want to stress the word health because we all know globally the definition of health. It is your health socially, your health economically, your health physically, your health mentally, your health sexually, your health in every aspect of your life to guarantee your well-being. It's not about investment in medical care, but in health. And to improve equity. Equity is geographical, it's across genders, across professions, across where you live. That is the equity we talk about. And then, of course, overall, to achieve this, the AU has the objective of addressing the social determinants of health to reduce priority disease burdens by 2030. Now, I would like us to look at the legal instrument, which normally presentations in the health arena do not take much cognizance of. And yet we are in a world that is democratic, which anchors whatever is done on behalf of governments in the legal instruments that vest the power of the people in the people that lead them. Now, when we were writing the Ugandan constitution, we said we must have objectives as part of that constitution so that whoever is coming up with the subsequent policies and programs always refers to the objectives. Why are we saying this? Because we didn't want to leave it to the legal experts, the judges, to interpret our feeling as and when we made the constitution. So we have objective principles, 14, 17, and 18, which are about maximizing social and cultural well-being. Because our health also depends on how we are raised and our beliefs and where we live. So the social and cultural well-being is very, very important when we are making health policies and programs. Objective principles 20 to 22 is about medical services, water, food, and nutrition. Now, when you talk about health, this is quite important in the health sector and the health professionals because we interchange health services and medical services. It's a Ministry of Health when actually we should be talking about departments of medical services. So we need to be very clear in our constitution, the inputs which will support the social and cultural well-being of the people is anchored in objective principles 20 to 22. Then we recognize that there are cases when things are out of our control. So we have objective principle 2023, which talks about natural hazards and disasters. And this puts in place the machinery to deal with everything that causes people suffering arising out of natural catastrophes. Then objective principle 26 is about accountability. Many times when we talk about accountability, we look to the accountants for the money. But this is basically about holding office in trust for the people. Now, when you look at public servants, many of them, they think the people are their servants. When we actually hold public office, and indeed, it's the people who pay us, because whoever pays the piper should call the tune. There is the duties of a citizen are taken care of in Objective Principle 29. Here, it's talking about engaging in gainful work for the good of that citizen, the family, the common good, and to contribute to national development. So we said everybody must work. Only those who work have the right to eat. And if you don't work, why should you also be part of the general cooperative? There should be contribution from your end. And then it says, as an individual, as a citizen in this country, you should contribute to the well-being of the community where you live. Now, living does not mean where you have a house, because life continues 24 hours. It should be where you are, when you go to the market, when you go to collect water, even when you are in hospital, you are living in that community. So the definition of community will have to change. A factory is a community. A market is a community. So the old thinking that we should place health personnel in the villages, when people actually have double villages, they spend half of their awake time away from home and come back home to rest and sleep. So when do you catch them? To be able to ensure they participate in health programs that benefit every community as and when the need arises. And now, I would like to go to the article in the Constitution. In constitution making, the objectives guide the legal framework. So here, articles are what one can sue you for. But the judges use the objective principles to frame their judgment on how you've performed. Now, in the health sector, many times the judges are not in courts of law. They are sitting in the line waiting. They are in the communities. And this article is Article 110 on state emergency, when they actually need the state the most. And this is the Article 1C, which talks to the necessity to secure public safety, defense of Uganda, and maintenance of public order and essential supplies and services. Here, we really see it in play in every epidemic, all the way from when we had the plague in the 1940s, when we had HIV/AIDS, when we have other epidemics like Ebola, which came in from DRC Congo, recently Ebola, which came in the South Sudan variant, and then of course COVID, which affected the whole world. Now, what does the Ministry of Health say about its mission, vision, and everything else? And this, you can actually go to the website of the ministry and pick it up. It embodies in words what we are talking about. But the Constitution also says the government, the state must ensure basic medical care. It must ensure basic medical care. And in interpretation, this is actually primary health care, which refers to essential health care. So here, basic medical care is the essential health care, because medical is a subset of health. And this has to be based on scientifically sound and socially acceptable methods and technology. I would like to talk about social acceptance, because we talk about biology and physical sciences, forgetting about the social sciences. The physical sciences are almost a constant. There is no new science on what a virus is. Yes, we deepen our understanding. There is no new science on how a mosquito will give you a malaria parasite. It still has to bite you. But the social sciences are versatile. In economics and econometrics, this is the error term, which in the biological sciences we never measure. And then we wonder why, at the end of the day, we are doing the same thing, intensifying, moving right and left, but really not doing much. So I want to say that this aspect of socially acceptable methods and technology, and now the technology has made it really complicated for some of us born in the 1900. So this is an area which under primary health care, we really have to look at very seriously. Primary health care initiatives allow for the full participation of community members in implementation and decision-making. And when you go back to our constitution, it actually tells you that you should not do anything without consulting the people. You should not, because it gives the people the power to make decisions. So you look at this and again say, because most of the diseases or health issues and even medical issues like the non-communicable diseases can be preventable if we can focus on primary health care. Services must be provided at a cost that the community and the country can afford at every stage of their development in the spirit of self-reliance and self-determination. For how long can Uganda go on depending almost 80% for the health budget on donors? How many years of independence have we had? So we, as leaders, we break the constitution. As technical people, we break the constitution, because at the end of the day, we are the ones who say, donors, 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 they are part of everything we do, instead of us saying diseases cross borders. So we must all collaborate as a global community. But how are we getting our people to make sure that primary health care services are provided at a cost the community and the country can afford, and that they are sustainable? This is where now we say, oh, health insurance or medical insurance. I call it medical insurance, because health insurance will be an insurance to cater for every aspect under the definition of health. How am I insured economically? How am I insured physically on the road? How am I insured socially? How can I ensure my social status? So all these are things which we should look at and go deeper than what is comfortable for us to do in getting people get the primary health care that they need. And its goals, the goal of primary health care is to empower people and communities through a multi-sectoral policy and action. And I must say, this definition is really old. It's as old as the definition of what health is by the World Health Organization. Every region, every country in the world uses the same definition. But in this forum, it is not for me to start saying, let us now start dissecting why is it that we are not focusing on primary health care to ensure communicable diseases, including what we call non-communicable diseases. Infectious diseases can actually be reduced in accordance with the vision and mission and objectives of the African Health Strategy and the policies and constitution of the Republic of Uganda. So what is Uganda's experience with respect to COVID-19 and Ebola? Now, I must say that this experience has made Uganda, the experience in managing epidemics has put Uganda on the map. But I also want to put it to you that if you are a man or a woman of 40 years of age and you keep knocking your foot on a stone as you walk to the well, and you don't know how to circumvent that stone in the roadside for 40 years, then actually you are just, nobody can think of you as being serious. So I want to really thank the people and the government of Uganda and the leaderships and the technical people in the Ministry of Health for the last 40 years for really putting in place the machinery to combat epidemics in the country. But this you must also remember that Makerere University, Kampala, produced the best health professionals south of the Sahara, even before independence. So we have the technical expertise. But what also helped us, ironically, is the fact that the wars we've been having and the insecurity in governance and the government has also helped us to hold on together as the Ugandans to be able to fight whatever is going to take away the peace. So the experience, 40 years, managing HIV/AIDS, which is a pandemic, managing Ebola, managing COVID-19. I want to tell you, I sit in that Ministry of Health, and Ugandans and Africans have to know our people are good at what they do. I also want to say that our partners, when it comes to the basic issues of health, they really come on board to support us. So the onus is on us to do the right planning and then plug in where they can help us to move forward in the right direction. So the institutional arrangements which have been put in place, we already have the AIDS Commission, which has all the literature to show us what we should do. Because AIDS, we recognize then, was not a medical issue. It was a social issue. And everybody came on board. That experience of working institutionally with technical people, working with NGOs, working with the cultural and traditional leaders, working with the women groups, working with the youth groups. These institutional arrangements, which are already codified in our constitution, have helped us to be able to move forward. However, when it comes to technically looking and sustaining the momentum, we seem to always wake up. When an epidemic knocks, we have to wake up again and wake up again, because the Epidemic Emergency Response Center, which deals with the epidemics, is like a unit which is utilized by all government departments. And yet the African Union has recommended these should be upscaled to the level that they can at all times be responsible for disease surveillance in the country, because COVID has showed us that it is a security issue, because economic insecurity will always know when a disease is in your house, when it's in your village, when it's in your country. Then resource mobilization is almost always easy when there's an epidemic. In African culture, contrary to our culture, when you are sick, nobody contributes. But when you are dead, everybody comes to bury you. But I think that this response in epidemics is to the fact that everybody is now at risk. So the resource mobilization, almost all government departments are put at a standstill for us to chase the enemy. And I want to thank the government for being able to convince the Ugandans to do that. However, the operational guidance and implementation usually has bumpy roads. Also because we have not harnessed the multi-sectoral approach, which has been envisaged in the Constitution, which is envisaged under the primary health care, so that we are able to go down to where the people are in their communities, and they ensure that they own whatever response is on the ground. How can Uganda do better? I believe, and there's this saying by that physicist who said, only a fool does the same thing the same way and expects the same results. I'm sure you all know that renowned physicist. I believe that we need to look deeper, what you scientists call research and innovation, to innovate citizen participation at all levels of engaging with the globality. I'm on slide 9. To engage, that's not the slide, my dear. Slide 9. Yeah? I'll continue talking while my expert maneuvers the slides. We have to innovate. Innovate citizen participations at all levels so that they engage with the global. Global, I don't mean they go to the whole world because that's through delegation, but the health system, which is all those institutions and activities that nurture health. And citizens forums are called for. In Africa, citizens who have more knowledge than others go to urban areas to work, and COVID showed us people walked miles to their homes in the villages. So we have resources, technical. People I call migratory technical expertise to form these citizens forums in every community to ensure the performance of the health system. Then to strengthen health research and innovation. During COVID, many people were saying, oh, innovation, it is the physical sciences or biological sciences. Like I said earlier, biological sciences are static. The sciatic nerve is still the sciatic nerve. The optic nerve is still the optic nerve. But what I choose to retain with what I've seen is a behavioral, it is a contextual issue, which is not within the sciences that we talk about in the health sector. So the social sciences need to be given more attention so that we can innovate. And this is even so with the technology that has come in. How do we get people to actually get the knowledge they need, even without going to a health center, so that we are able to get the communities on their health? We need to support structures supporting and regulating traditional and complementary medicine. This is also a lesson learned from COVID, because people could not easily move, but they were surrounded by their herbs known in their traditions. They called upon the knowledge of their forefathers and foremothers, and they were treating malaria using herbs. They were washing their babies with what we call a yogurt or different herbs to treat skin diseases. They were treating worms using herbs. And this is where Western medically trained professionals call this witchcraft. And it has left us behind. And now COVID has taught us this lesson. In Uganda, we have the legal framework, but getting the mindset change. to get medical professions to know we can run traditional healing practices side by side with the modern technology so that we can actually wholly treat the patient in the way they believe can help them most. Now, next, the whole government or health in all policies. Many medical professionals say, I don't want to be associated with politics. Health is politics, and politics is health. Because even when politicians evaluate who is not voting for them, it's to do, we have no health facility. We don't have roads which will take us when we have emergencies. Health is politics. So we have to comprehensively address the social determinants of health. And I think this should be the priority in any health sector program. The priority. The next one would be promoting social protection mechanisms. This is where, again, our definition of social protection mechanisms goes to donating to older people, donating to single mothers, donating. Why? Because that does not give you social protection. It's your community which can give you social protection. Otherwise, why are you a single mother? You are just treating the tip of the iceberg. Why are you a mother at the age of 14? Why are you hypertensive? Because hypertensive fluctuates throughout the day. Why have you developed this cancer? Why are you getting malaria all the time? Because the rich people don't get as much malaria as the poor people. So the social protection mechanisms are to do with how do we as a community come together to promote our well-being, whose indicators of success are our economic success, our social success in the networks, our physical success, because I know if I eat well and there's a playground around, I can stay more healthy and live longer, healthy life. So medical insurance alone is really promoting not social protection. It is ensuring, now that there's medical insurance, I can fall sick. Because as we know in the economics, everything which appears to be free is actually abused in the way it is used. So how do we innovate social protection for our health holistically, physically, socially, economically, and based in the community where somebody can be trusted or trust the people they know. The next one is the categorizing training and capacity. This is the human resources for health. As a surgeon, and therefore a medical person who has moved in government across many sectors, I can see my colleagues. For us, human resource for health is about people who are working in the hospitals. But you have to go back to the definition of health. So who are these people at the community level? Who will form the health committee as a technical team? It will be the agriculture officer. Because in my village, we are farmers. It will be the veterinary officer. Because if I actually spray my cows, maybe my mosquitoes will also die. It will be the person who sells pesticides. And I have to know that if I sell, so the technical people, it will be the officer responsible for housing. Because if I put nets in my house, the mosquitoes won't come in, and it's a once for all, activity. Maybe the person responsible for the roads, because if there is a pavement or a sidewalk, then I'm not likely to be knocked down by a motorcycle. It is the police officer who is looking at the cars. Do people have seat belts? This is how we need to change the mindset. And the reason why, once we categorize, train, and capacitate human resource for health and deploy them where they will be able to promote health, prevent disease, and then the treatment. At the community level, everybody with their technical expertise is actually a health officer, including the sub-county chief, the parish chief, the chief administrative officer, the community development officer, who is responsible for mindset change in our people. Next slide. Now, can we still do better? I think so. In Uganda, and I must say Africa, our heads of state, we advise them and they do what we advise them. And I think we've done what they have told us to do, except the issue of governance, giving power to the people, decentralizing it. As our constitution says, we must decentralize and devolve power and resources up to the grassroots. What has happened is that this issue of governance, accountability, and stewardship is still in limbo. Is it the Prime Minister's office? Is it this ministry? So the Ministry of Health should really take on that mantle and say, I am the monitor. I am the policy maker for your health and well-being. You other departments are helping to pick at the different elements under the social determinants of health. But it's me to make sure that I do that. So strengthening the capacities of ministries of health to regulate and monitor the health sector through legal or policy instruments and putting in place permanent committees of governments to do that really helps a lot. And then when it comes to emergency health preparedness, the legal framework must be very explicit on the role of that, the emergency response body, so that we know resources are always on standby to make sure that we move forward. I again want to register my appreciation to KOFI for having appointed me on their advisory board. And I believe that at the end of the day, working together as a global community with the people of similar minds, we should be able to be true partners in health for the good of humanity. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for sharing your insights. If you have any question regarding the presentation or about health system in Uganda, please raise your hand or leave your question on the chat box. Is there anyone who wants to ask questions? So if you have any question regarding the presentation or the health system in Uganda, please contact to KOFI, then we will send the questions to Your Excellency. Once again, please give a big round of applause to Dr. Kazibwe for sharing her valuable ideas. And thank you all for joining us today. The next Global Health Forum will be held in March, and I kindly invite your active participation. See you in March. Thank you.